guys, so this basic cichlid food is for fry, okay? This isn't a recipe for adults. It contains exactly what I'd give the adults, but we're not adding any gelatine. So the point for that is, if you add gelatine, it's going to congeal together, which is brilliant for feeding adults because it doesn't cloud your tank water. But what I want to do is make it break apart as tiny as possible, so fry are going to get that grow on. So for that reason, no gelatine, or jello if you're American. Okay, so basic ingredients: courgette, or whatever it is in the States, zucchini, peas. These need to be shelled. Now, first time I ever made this recipe, there was all these things on the internet saying, oh, shell the peas, and I thought, yeah, whatever, my cichlids will eat anything. They don't digest it very well, and they'll avoid it, or they'll spit it back out. So unless you want loads of crap in your tank and stuff that's bad for your fish, don't do it. It's a pain in the butt shelling peas. Best suggestion to do: soak them in hot water and you can just squeeze them out with your fingertips and they'll pop out of the shell. So go and watch TV, sit and read a book, whatever you want to do, and sit and shell peas. Take about half an hour. You want a good handful of those per mix. Okay, I'll explain why I'm using these vegetables and what the purpose of peas and courgette is on the website. I'll put a little description of what nutrients and vitamins are in here that are beneficial for your fish. I've not got any spirulina powder left, so I'm just using substitute tonight, which is like a load of flake. But good handful of that. Alternatively, a couple of tablespoons of powder will do the trick. Prawns. The reason why we're using this is for protein, and a good, nice, soft protein. We're not using any red meats or anything stupid like that our fish won't be able to digest. Only got tiny, tiny stomachs. I'm also chucking in a bit of brine shrimp, a couple of tablespoons of that as well. So, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the skin of the courgette, chop it up, throw it in the blender. We're going to get the shelled peas, we're going to throw those in the blender. Tablespoon of powder, the brine shrimp. We'll throw the prawns in. As you can see, there's only half a punnet because I've already made one batch of this. Usually what I do for economics and for saving money, buy 2 courgettes, 1 punnet of 200 gram prawns, and then a handful of spirulina, a little bit of your brine shrimp, and a load of peas. So it makes up 2 batches for your most expensive component, which is obviously your prawns. Okay, so this will make one big batch of fry food. It'll last you forever. So we throw the whole lot in a blender. Now you need to blend it for quite a long time and make sure that all the lumps are gone, because you want this as tiny as possible. So it should look like consistency of soup. So what you'll do with these ingredients is also add about 100 mils of water, and that'll give it that lovely consistency. Alright, so I'm going to go and blend it up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so here it is. There's this gloopy sludge. Okay, one ingredient I forgot to mention was garlic. Okay, chuck garlic in here. Now you can do it a couple of ways. You can get fresh garlic and add your cloves in and mash it up. But what I tend to find is you just get huge lumps of the stuff kicking around. So I've used powdered garlic. Probably not 100% fresh, and if you want it to be a purist, you can go for it. But again, I want the particles as small as possible to make sure my cichlids get a little bit of everything when they're fry. Okay, so that's the kind of sludgy consistency you should be doing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hoy it into these little zip bags. You can get these from the supermarket, and they've just got that little press seal on them. Okay, so I'm going to do that because I've only got one hand to film this. Alright, so I've bagged up the sludge. As you can see, here we are, nice dollop of the stuff. So what you want to be doing is put it in and then flatten it out like that, and it just sits, and whack it in your freezer. Now if you fill your bag way too full, you're going to end up with huge thick cubes, and this is much easier if it's just like in a frozen flake that you can just snap a bit off. Okay, so that's basically it. Chuck these in the freezer, and that little mix that I made there should make easily 2. You can still see I've got a load left in there. So that will last you ages. So that's basically really, really fast little bit of food, and you only need tiny bits of this per feed. So a couple of bags of this should last you months and months. So for somebody like me, I have quite a lot of fry a lot of the time. This is a really good, strong, efficient way of getting all the fish the right nutrients on a budget. I think that's the important part for me. I'm not trying to say New Life Spectrum isn't the absolute bee's knees. And basically, if you can afford to fill fry tanks with New Life Spectrum, brilliant, but I can't, so that's the reason why I'm doing this recipe. Alternatively, I could just use fish flake, which is great. I just like to know exactly what's in it. And there's nothing wrong with flake. Again, it's just I like this, I know my fish are getting all the nutrients that I want them to get, and it's cheap as chips. Alright, so I'll go and show you some, here's some I made earlier, and see what the fish think of it. Alright guys, so here we are. Here's some that I prepared earlier for Breaking Bad fans, a bit of green meth. Bitch. So, that's the stuff frozen. As you can see from the last lot I made, that's why I'm saying spread it thin in the bag. You've got huge, great chunks of the stuff. So, you just need to take a tiny bit off, and I mean small, because this stuff's going to disperse in your tank. So that's probably about, I don't know, a centimetre cube is probably like your best option for maybe 30 fry, something like that. Okay, so we're just going to dip it in some tank water. And let it defrost. You need to make sure that we don't only feed them ice, so it doesn't take long. You can see it kind of breaking apart there. I'm going to speed matters up by just getting it chopped in. While that's kind of doing its thing, this is a cube of, you see it's kind of spongy stuff. This is same recipe but with gelatine, basically. It's added it, which makes these kind of nice jello stuff, and this stuff is absolutely brilliant for feeding your bigger fish. That one's one that I froze just with ice cubes, and it's just defrosted in a couple of minutes. But I'll show you how to do that in another video. It's a little bit more of a faff because you've got to warm up your gelatine, but it's the same principle, really easy, and you can make loads and feed your adult cichlids that, because it doesn't disperse, it doesn't taint the water, it stays in those nice kind of clungy lumps, and they love it. Really easy for them. It's not dried food, which is I think the key for the digestion, which is why they seem to like it so much. They can wolf it down really happily. Okay, so before I waffle on, there we go, and you can see, I hope you can see this video, it's just dispersed nicely, so we can plop that in. You can see how small that breaks apart. There's a lot dispersed in there, and that was just off a centimetre cube. So these guys will absolutely wolf that up. I wouldn't recommend you do any more than a centimetre cube. These fish are about an inch long, just a little bit shorter at the moment. And you can see that they've completely gone for that. That's nearly all gone already. If you do any more, you're going to run the risk of kind of that, just deteriorating your water quality. And much as giving these guys good food, water quality is the main factor on making these guys grow big and healthy quickly. Healthily, I think is the key there. So I'm doing that. This tank's only it's 2.5 foot tank. So if you're going to feed fry, I recommend that you don't chuck these in big tanks, because the fry want to gobble it up. We don't want this stuff loose, kicking around your substrate. So, as I say, that's the only reason I haven't added the gelatine. You can see it's all gone in under a minute. They've wolfed it all down very happily. Now, one word of warning, because of the amount of garlic I've added in the fish room here, I've got a few tanks and I kind of feed it to them all, but it does make the fish room have a bit of a garlicky whiff. The next morning I come down, it's a bit like being in bed with your partner after you've had a curry and she's been farting her little head off in bed all night. The air gets a bit chewy. So if your tank's in your house, just prepare for a bit of a garlicky whiff. It's gone in minutes, but leave a window open. Alright, Okay, so I'll do another video at some point with the gelatine version, which is again really good. Fry will eat it just the same, but for efficiency wise I like to give the fry the frozen stuff. Keeps for ages, and I think that bag there lasted me, I've got what, just under half a bag left, and that's already lasted me a couple of months, and I'm feeding well over 400 fry in here, so obviously we were getting over 2 bags per batch, and with 1 punnet of prawns we were getting 4 bags in total, so you can see why it's kind of efficient way of feeding these fry. Alright, cheers.